Hi Yoga family. So today I am going to be practicing a traditional Hatha Yoga class, and that will involve some things that might seem a little strange to some of you. And so I wanted to do this tutorial. It's the traditional Uddiyana Bandha that is taught in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And so when we're practicing this, it's actually quite a strong lifting up, the flying up of the abdominal cavity. And we practice this for several reasons. We practice this to help harness our energy. It can help us with digestive issues. It can also help us become very centered. It creates internal heat. And if you're ever feeling uncomfortable and you need to develop some courage and you've got to go into a situation that is, seems like it's a little bit overwhelming, you can just kind of steal yourself away for a few minutes and come and practice a few rounds of this particular technique called Uddiyana Bandha. And just see how you feel. It does take some practice. After you understand and are able to practice Uddiyana Bandha with efficiency, you can then begin to practice something called Nauli Kriya, which is a churning of those muscles. So I just thought I would demonstrate, and I can't talk at the same time as doing it, so I'll demonstrate and then I'll overlay it with voice and you'll get the idea. So feel free to try along with me, and then when we come to the next practice, our hour-long practice, it will become a little bit more familiar, and just keep trying. A couple of caveats: if you're a woman and you're on your cycle, you're not going to want to do this. Caution as well if you're pregnant, and always taking good care to make sure that you have no other underlying conditions where this might be something that you want to avoid or it's contraindicated. If you check out the description below in each video, I have extra information there. So I'll have contraindications listed there. As always, you're not to engage in this practice at all without getting the prior approval of a medical health professional. I'm not here to diagnose. I'm simply here to share some of the wisdom that I've gained over the years with my different teachers. So without further ado, I will demonstrate the practice of Uddiyana Bandha. So first, you won't have to have your shirt exposed, of course. I'm doing this so you can actually see what's going on with my abdominal muscles. So you'll step your feet about shoulder distance apart. Place your hands on your thighs. Have your elbows pointing out. Sometimes I see people down like this, and you want to avoid that. You want to be able to scoop out and kind of around and arch your upper back. So I can't speak through the rest of it, so I'll simply demonstrate. It's a deep breath in, a deep exhalation out, and then you do this when your body is void of breath. So I'll begin. I just demonstrated the Uddiyana Bandha technique. And if you're curious about it or wondering about it a little bit more, it's not typically taught in Western yoga classes. Some of you know that I've been trained in the Eastern approach, and I bring that spiritual and that influence into my classes here. And so the book I was referencing, some of you are probably familiar with that, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And so Uddiyana Bandha in this text says, Uddiyana Bandha is so called by the yogis because through its practice, the prana is concentrated at one point and it rises through sushumna. Sushumna is the main energy channel that runs along the spine. And the bandha described is called the rising or the flying bandha because through its practice, the great bird Shakti flies upward with ease. The bandha described is called the rising or the flying bandha because through its practice, the great bird Shakti flies upward with ease. So movement of Shakti in the body is described as a bird in this text. And in the Upanishads, again, more traditional texts, alternating activities of Ida and Pingala, and I'll talk more about that in future videos. So alternating activities of Ida and Pingala nadis are said to ensnare the consciousness like a bird which is tied to its perch. It tries to fly away time and time again, but it constantly is pulled down. However, if the Shakti of Ida and Pingala can be brought together and released through sushumna, it will ascend, and ultimately it will be freed in sahasrara chakra, our crown chakra, the highest heaven. Uddiyana Bandha changes the course of the downward moving apana vayu. So these are the winds, the internal winds, energy winds. And it unites us with prana vayu and samana vayu. Some of you have taken some of my lectures and my workshops on the vayus. Again, that's a whole other topic. So just know that we're moving the energy, the internal winds, with this particular practice. And when these two opposite energies of apana and prana meet in the navel region through this technique of Uddiyana Bandha, there's an explosion of potential force, which then travels upward, all the way upward through sushumna nadi. And it's powered by Uddiyana vayu. It's taken up to the higher centers. Of course, there's a major event in the course of one sadhana, which is your personal practice, and it does not take place with 1 or 2 rounds of this practice. So don't expect something in return right away from this particular practice. It requires you to be patient, and it requires an ardent performance in combination with other techniques. And so I encourage you to send me any questions in the comments below. A note on the comments in the description of the videos. Many of you write to me saying, hey, can you share the poem that you wrote? And when we were in class face-to-face, I'd often just have it with me and I could share it then and you would take a picture. We don't have that availability now. So you'll have to, every time you look at a video, you'll look down and you'll see it says description. Anything that I talk about in class, there's a general description in the area below. So if I've read a poem, if I've referenced a book or a technique, look down in the description area before you send me a question about it, just because it's very likely that answer is down below. I love to answer the question if I can, recognizing that I am simply a humble yogi myself, practicing and wanting to share what I've learned. But anyway, so check out the description in each video if you have a particular question, and it might be answered in the description area. So give that a try, give it a practice. Remember to check out any contraindications that I will list in the area below before you practice this. And be patient with yourself. It takes practice. So once you are able to practice Uddiyana Bandha, that upward flying lock, that flying of Shakti bird, then we can spend a little bit more time on the next step that I demonstrated, which is Nauli Kriya. And that's a whole other technique, but we need first to establish a firm foundation in that practice of Uddiyana Bandha. So now, without further ado, we will come to a traditional Hatha Yoga practice, and we will practice pranayama and asana, and finish with a moment of meditation.